Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. So, Xbox and 343 Industries finally did it. After several delays and months of silence, and, well, 343 Industries themselves even said that their fans are out of patience, well, they finally did it, and they did reveal Halo Infinite's first major update. The question now becomes, is this enough? Well, we'll kind of go over all that here in just a little bit. Also, a big Nintendo game is receiving a pretty interesting update as well. I think that this one is definitely looking really good, so make sure to stay tuned for that one later on in the video. As always, though, if you do enjoy the video and if you want to stay up to date with all of the latest gaming news, make sure to hit that bell notification and subscribe button below. Plus, while you're at it, go ahead and hit that like button as well. I mean, it's right there, and it also does help out the channel a ton. Other than that, though, let's just go and jump right into the video, starting off with an update for the next Need for Speed game. This was a game that was originally slated to release in 2021, but earlier this year, EA did take Criterion Games off of Need for Speed in order to help assist with Battlefield 2042. That way, they could get that game out by the holiday. In retrospect, that probably wasn't really the best idea, and they probably should have just went ahead and delayed Battlefield 2042 in order to maybe fix some of its problems. Just yet another example that kind of exposes why you shouldn't rush games to the market, but that's a story for a different time. The good news here, though, is that Criterion is back on Need for Speed yet again, and according to Jeff Grubb, the well-known VentureBeat journalist and insider, he is claiming that Need for Speed is set to release sometime later this year. However, you might want to be prepared for this release because he is stating that this is going to be a next generation only game, or I guess you could say a current generation only game. That means that the next Need for Speed game is being planned for an Xbox Series and PlayStation 5 release, but will not be playable on a PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One. Now, keep in mind that none of this is confirmed just yet. You don't have to go out and buy a PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X as of this moment. But at the same time, I do kind of suspect that we are going to start to see that transition increase a little bit more rapidly over the next year or so, and we might see that with Need for Speed as early as this year. Moving on, a successor to what many people believe to be one of the best independent games has been announced, being Hyper Light Breaker. This would be the successor to Hyper Light Drifter, though it is sounding like this one is going to be quite a bit different. Now, they haven't really shown much in the way of gameplay just yet. They've really only shown this animated trailer here with a very brief look on what the world looks like, but that and the description alone already kind of tells you this is going to be a very different game. This is going to be set in a 3D world, which is not their first foray into a 3D adventure. No, it's not necessarily the same as Hyper Light Drifter, but we did see them do this just last year with Solar Ash, which also has a very similar art style. So with Breaker, it looks like they're going to kind of continue into that direction with that beautiful art style that they're just so well known for, and then they're going to kind of incorporate Hyper Light Drifter's gameplay into that more open world. And because they've already developed something like Solar Ash, they have a little bit more experience doing something like that, which means that they could have learned some of the lessons with that game and then make Breaker into an even better game. So I think that this is actually pretty exciting, especially with just how good Hyper Light Drifter was. They did, however, say that this is not a sequel per se. It is set in the same universe, but not necessarily a sequel either. So you don't have to play the first game, but at the same time, that game was just so good, so I definitely recommend it, to say the least. Nonetheless, though, Hyper Light Breaker is set to come to early access on Steam sometime in 2023. However, they have not announced any other platforms as of this moment. Let's go ahead and talk about Xbox Game Pass, though, as we did get an update for Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, this is really interesting because Guardians of the Galaxy released late last year. I want to say it was late October, and within a month, you could kind of tell that this game was not performing up to expectations. It was receiving some pretty major discounts within its first 30 days, which usually isn't a great sign, and this later on was confirmed by Square Enix themselves. They did state that they were not necessarily pleased with the slow start for Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, the thing about this game, though, is that even though it wasn't necessarily selling a lot, it was also a really good game, especially if you like story-driven experiences. It actually won the Best Narrative over at the Game Awards in 2021. So here you have a good game, but it's not necessarily selling well. So what do? Well, Square Enix decided to go over to Xbox and say, hey, let's put this game into Xbox Game Pass and let's see what happens. And well, apparently it's given Guardians of the Galaxy new life. Over in an interview with Eurogamer, Eidos Montreal was being asked about Guardians of the Galaxy and its success, and they did say that thanks to the word of mouth and its arrival in Xbox Game Pass, they now feel that the game is doing well. You can actually take a look over here where they say, "It's like anything. We always want to sell trillions, but it's not always necessarily as easy as that. For me, it's all about creating the game. What I love right now is that people, especially with Game Pass, are playing it and they're sharing the experience. We make games to touch people, we make games to hit an audience, and it's great that it's finding its audience, and it's great that it keeps going forward." So there you have it. It does seem like that they are pleased with Guardians of the Galaxy and the results it's getting from Xbox Game Pass. It does seem like word of mouth is increasing, and this is something that I have talked about before. Xbox Game Pass really increases word of mouth, which is one of the greatest advertising tools that you can have. And when you pair that with a good game like Guardians of the Galaxy, yes, people are going to go over to places like social media and they're going to talk about it. And that type of thing does translate to sales. And not just for Xbox either, but for all platforms involved. This is a multi-platform game, so that's always something important to keep in mind. But it is really interesting to see a AAA game here have a lot of success coming over to Xbox Game Pass. We do have plenty of examples of independent games seeing a lot of success by coming over to Game Pass, but it's also interesting to see some of these AAA games see similar results as well. Speaking of Xbox, though, their flagship title, Halo Infinite, will finally be receiving its first major update. 343 Industries today did, yes, confirm Halo Infinite Season 2 Lone Wolves, which will be releasing on May 3rd. This does come included with quite a bit of new content, such as 2 very much needed new maps, one for an arena map, the other for a big team battles map, also a new battle pass that does not expire. You're also going to earn 1,000 credits through the premium battle pass, which some fans have kind of noticed that technically you can use that 1,000 credits to just pay for the next season pass. So that is quite cool right there. Also, it does come included with a couple of new game modes such as Last Spartan Standing and King of the Hill. That is also very nice to hear. And as for the much anticipated cooperative mode, unfortunately that will not release at the beginning of Season 2, but they did say that they are planning to release that mid-season. So there you have it. On May 3rd, you're finally going to get that first big update for Halo Infinite, though the question is this actually enough to bring fans back? And I think that that right there is going to yield mixed results. And what I mean by that is that I do believe that some fans will return to Halo Infinite at the beginning of Season 2. They're going to want to unlock all the new stuff that comes with that new Battle Pass. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think Season 2 adds what I believe Halo Infinite is in dire need of right now. And that is just simply more maps. The thing about Halo Infinite is that in terms of its gameplay, it is an exceptional game. I truly do believe it's one of the best competitive shooters on the market right now, just in terms of the way it feels and the game mechanics. It is a superb game. However, if you're primarily playing something like competitive and you're just playing those arena maps, you have a very limited pool of maps. Halo Infinite, as of this moment, only has 10 maps, and some of those are only playable in arena and the others are only playable in big team battles, so that's split up even further. So again, if you're primarily playing in something like Arena, you're just seeing the same maps over and over again, so that right there is what they need to improve. And here in Season 2, you're only getting 2 new maps, but one of those are big team battles and the other is Arena. So this isn't going to make a major change in what you see on a daily basis if you play Halo Infinite a lot. So for me, I'm thinking, yeah, I might jump back in here, enjoy it a little bit, check out some of the new content, but I don't know if this is necessarily enough content to keep people entertained for the long term. I still do believe that it absolutely needs more maps than what it has as of this moment. Hopefully within time that does greatly improve, because I do believe that Halo Infinite is an excellent game. It feels absolutely astounding. I think they did a phenomenal job with the single player, and I do believe that it has one of the best competitive multiplayers in the market. It just really needs new content. And when I say it needs new content, I'm not talking about cosmetics. I'm talking about meaningful content such as maps. That's what they really need to bring to Halo Infinite. Let me know what you think about their first update, though. Actually, give me a letter grade in the comments below. Would you give this first big update an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F? A is for absolutely amazing, and F is just a complete failure. Let me know in the comments below. Now, we also got a very welcome update for Metroid Dread. And it's so interesting how things kind of work out, because I think a lot of us last year, we were just thrilled with the idea that a 2D Metroid game is going to release in the year of 2021. That alone was extremely exciting. And then to just kind of top it off, it has been performing very well on the market. It does look like it will end up being the best-selling Metroid game of all time, or at least until Metroid Prime 4. But now, just as a kind of an added bonus, Nintendo, they're actually supporting this game fairly well. It is receiving new content, not just new content, but also free new content. That does include some new game modes that you can actually play right now. All three of these do revolve around 3 different boss rush modes. The first of which is Boss Rush, where players will fight 12 continuous boss battles and aim for the best time. Any damage received is carried over to the next fight, and weapons are fully restored between battles. If Samus is defeated, players may select retry to continue playing from the start of the battle that they lost, but there is, however, a time penalty for being undefeated. That one already sounds pretty fun, but if you want to take things just a step further, they also have Survival Rush. In this game mode, players will see how many bosses they can defeat inside a 5-minute time limit. Any damage that's received or weapons that are spent are carried over into the next battle. Even if time remains on the clock, Samus being defeated will result in a game over. If you defeat a boss, this will add a fixed amount of time to the countdown clock, and if you take no damage, you'll receive an even bigger time bonus. So there's your second, but there's a third one here as well by the name of Dread Rush. And this is for you hardcore Metroid fans out there, as in this one, if Samus is hit by a boss, her energy just simply drops to 0 and she is defeated. So if you like Metroid and if you're seeking a new challenge, this actually sounds like a great update. And really for me, I just like the simple fact that Nintendo, they are trying to expand a little bit more. We have been seeing them here in recent years add more DLC to some of their games, and here with Metroid Dread, I mean, you're talking about a franchise that we haven't seen in such a long time. People's been playing Super Metroid, Metroid Fusion, and Metroid Zero Mission, all those games for years and years. And now here we got a brand new 2D Metroid, but on top of that, they're also giving it new content as well over time. I mean, we've already seen people in the past kind of challenge themselves by doing a no-hit run as an example, but now you have a dedicated game mode like that in Metroid Dread. That to me is just such a cool thing, and I do hope that we continue to see Nintendo do things like this in the future as well. For that matter, with Metroid Dread performing as well as it has been, how about we just go ahead and make another 2D Metroid while we're at it? So I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. But yes, big update for Metroid Dread that you can download right now. On to the poll of the day, though, and with that NVIDIA GeForce leak looking more realistic by the day, and, well, with that leak actually mentioning a Final Fantasy IX remake, I wanted to ask you all, if Square Enix really does remake another Final Fantasy game, which entry would you most like them to do? And as you can see here, if that leak does turn out to be true, then Square Enix is on the right track, as 37% of you all did vote for Final Fantasy IX. Interestingly enough, though, Final Fantasy VI took second place with 26%. Final Fantasy VIII was in third with 19%. 13% of you all voted for other, with a lot of the comments saying something like Final Fantasy IV. I saw that one pop up a lot. Tactics popped up occasionally, and also something like Final Fantasy X. All three of those seem like popular choices as well. And then here on the bottom, you do have Final Fantasy V at 5%. So there you have it. It does look like the majority of you all want Final Fantasy IX, so let's all just kind of cross our fingers and hope that NVIDIA GeForce leak is true. Now, one thing to kind of take note of here, though, is that there is a Final Fantasy IX anime in development, and I do kind of wonder if that maybe that anime is being paired off with some type of game as well. I mean, again, we can only kind of hope by this point, but yes, let's make that happen, Square Enix. That would be absolutely amazing. Final Fantasy VI, though, you all did put that in second place, and I think that that game would be a perfect game to give the Final Fantasy VII remake treatment to. I know that there's a possibility that they could just simply make this into an HD 2D game, but with it having such an epic story, I think that it could really benefit from a modern day treatment and just really expand upon that story. There's some really serious and emotional moments in that game that I think could be sold so extraordinarily well and just transition perfectly into a full remake. I think that could turn out to be an absolutely beautiful game if done right, but whether Square Enix actually wants to put the time into it. And I mean, there's also some absurd moments in Final Fantasy VI as well to just kind of be fair, but I still would absolutely love to see them do something like that. Final Fantasy VIII, though, I think that that's another great one that I would personally love to see a lot. It's actually one of my favorite entries in the Final Fantasy franchise. I know it tends to split the community a little bit more, but I still think that there's a beautiful story to tell there, and it has a great overall world. I mean, they could do a remake, maybe make Squall into a little bit less of a jerk, per se, and then if they do something like that, you could really make a great remake out of Final Fantasy VIII as well. Really, though, I think at the end of the day, whether it be 4, 6, 8, 9, or whatever, because these games are so good in the first place, because these games just have timeless stories, such lovable characters, and fascinating worlds, you could really remake any of these games, and if done right, again, they could just turn out to be absolutely phenomenal, as we're seeing with the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.